The ground was whispering warnings, but nobody wanted to listen. I knew something was wrong the moment I tapped my core drill into that smug stretch of land just south of Ocala. The soil was too soft, the water table too high, and the limestone beneath, it crumbled like dollar store chalk. You don't need a PhD in geology to know what that means, you just need ears. But somehow, in that air-conditioned mausoleum of a boardroom, nobody heard the earth screaming. I'd been with the firm for 18 years, not that it mattered. Mason and his cronies treated me like a dusty library book they forgot to return. The moment I flagged the plot as unstable karst terrain, the room got quiet, then condescending. Mason, with his gelled-up hair and MBA arrogance, looked at me like I'd farted in church. "Relax, Diane," he said, smirking. "This isn't your science fair project. It's a luxury housing development." I should have known then. Reason doesn't work on people who think speedboats count as personality. But I still believed in data, in documentation, in the power of truth. I submitted the report, 22 pages, full of charts, GPR scans, historical waterline shifts. And I waited. 2 weeks later, I found my report in the break room printer tray, half-stained with somebody's damn pumpkin spice latte. The cover page had been rebranded with some junior analyst's adjusted soil confidence index. Basically, they'd cherry-picked the parts that sounded good and dumped the rest. Optimistic forecasting, they called it. I call it corporate delusion. Still, I kept pushing. Meetings, emails, even a color-coded visual aid. I should have known better. You don't bring crayons to a knife fight. And hey, if you're still listening to this rant and somehow enjoying it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit my first 10,000 subscribers before the next sinkhole swallows my sanity. Apparently, 95% of you freeloaders just listen without committing, kinda like Mason at quarterly ethics training. Don't be Mason. Anyway, you know what it feels like to be the only sober person at a drunk driving convention? That's what working here became. Every Monday brought another blueprint, another cost-cutting proposal, another photo of Mason shaking hands with some polo-shirted investor next to a sign that read Earth-Rooted Elegance. But that land didn't want elegance. That land wanted vengeance. I started noticing strange things. The survey flags kept shifting, like the soil itself was trying to send a message. My computer froze whenever I uploaded certain files to the shared drive. Mason's assistant started forgetting to invite me to engineering briefings. Wasn't paranoid, I was experienced. Then came the meeting. The meeting, a room full of developers, architects, finance guys in matching fleece vests. Mason stood at the head like he was auditioning for a TED talk. "And here's where Diane will explain why the land's just fine," he said, motioning to me like I was a trained parrot. I stepped up, clicked to my slide, subsurface risk analysis, and opened my mouth. "You're not seriously still on this," Mason interrupted, for I could get past the title. "Guys, I swear, Diane here thinks we're building Atlantis. It's Florida, not a tectonic plate." Laughter. Heat climbed up my neck. I stared at the map. I thought about walking out, but I stayed. That's the curse of caring. After the meeting, a young contractor I barely knew caught me by the vending machine. "Hey, off the record, can you send me your full report?" he asked, eyes darting. I did, that night, because even if no one believed me yet, someone would, eventually. Mason strutted into the company like he'd just stepped off a yacht parked on top of a resume. Aviators indoors, sockless loafers, and a jawline that screamed trust fund. He wasn't hired for his geological acumen. Hell, I'd be surprised if he could spell substrate without autocorrect. But the board loved him. He brought vision, energy, and apparently a golf handicap that made investors feel things. Within a week of landing the VP spot, he had 2 interns fired for bad vibes and replaced the coffee with some subscription bean dust that tasted like burnt mulch. His whole shtick was optics over obstacles. Mason didn't want problems. He wanted press releases. That month, we had a major stakeholder presentation in the main hall. The room was packed, developers, engineers, big-bellied men in expensive khakis, pretending to care about sustainability. There was even a catering spread with sushi that made the air smell like a rotting aquarium. My slides were ready. I'd rehearsed them 3 times the night before. I had graphs, diagrams, cross-sections showing the erosion patterns under the proposed site. I was nervous, yeah, but confident. I thought maybe, the weight of the data would tip the scales. Then Mason happened. I wasn't even halfway through my second slide when he cut in, pacing the stage like a Dollar Tree Tony Robbins. Diane, he laughed, holding up a hand like a traffic cop stopping a clown car. You know we all love your passion, but folks, let me tell you, this woman thinks the sky is falling. If Diane had her way, we'd never build another thing in Florida. She's basically the office's Chicken Little. The room cracked up. Laughter bounced off the drywall. I stood there, pointer in hand, face frozen. I think I heard one of the architects choke on his wasabi. Chicken Little, that stuck. I heard it whispered around the water cooler the next day. It showed up as a Slack emoji. Someone even made a gif of a chicken in a lab coat falling into a hole. And suddenly my credibility, 2 decades of field work, published reports, storm drainage audits, was reduced to a fucking barnyard punchline. Mason flashed me a grin like he was handing me a gold watch. Worry, he said as the investor shook his hand and ignored me entirely. We appreciate your enthusiasm. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. Rage clenched behind my teeth so hard I swear my molars cracked. Later that day, I was in the parking lot, about to collapse into my car, when a voice caught me off guard. Hey, Dr. Lorman? I turned. It was that same young contractor from the vending machine, Jason, I think. His hard hat was tucked under one arm, his voice low, cautious. Can you, still send me your full report? The real one. The one they didn't want you to show. I blinked at him. He looked nervous, glancing back toward the office like someone might drag him away for asking. I nodded slowly. You got an email. He pulled a scrap of paper from his pocket. I took it without a word. So yeah, not everyone was buying the Chicken Little act. Some folks still had ears. I didn't know then that Mason wasn't just trying to fast-track the project. He was burying dissent. And next in line for the shovel, me. I spent that entire night crafting a memo so airtight it could survive a hurricane. Not a word of emotion, no trace of ego, just pure data and precedent, like a scalpel cutting through bullshit. I titled it Urgent Recommendation for Secondary Soil Analysis, Phase I Plot. I attached my original report, penned it a bibliography longer than Mason's attention span, and CC'd every engineer, architect, and legal parasite remotely involved in the project. 24 hours passed. Nothing. 48. Still nothing. Then, on the third morning, I walked into the office and found the color printer whirring out a flyer for the groundbreaking ceremony. It featured a stock photo of a smiling couple in front of a model home with the slogan Solid Foundations for the Future. Solid, my ass. I stormed into Mason's glass cage, his corner office that reeked of eucalyptus diffuser oil and self-importance, and slapped the memo onto his keyboard. Have you even read it? I asked. He leaned back in his ergonomic throne, laced his fingers behind his head, and smirked. I skimmed it, he said, but we don't have time for academic exercises. We're building momentum. You, Diane, are starting to sound like resistance. Resistance? I blinked. I'm trying to stop us from constructing $1 million mausoleum on a goddamn sponge. You're undermining confidence, he snapped. We've got buyers lined up and contractors booked. The last thing we need is paranoia infecting the team. I'm requesting a second soil test. Independent, not the cherry-picked nonsense from last month. He stood, suddenly too close. His smile flattened. You're done making requests. Effective immediately, you're on administrative leave. HR will send the paperwork. My throat went dry. The office outside was silent, like everyone had suddenly forgotten how keyboards worked. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm serious, he said, walking past me to open the door, his way of shooing me out like a misbehaving intern. Take the time to recalibrate. I didn't move, not at first. My hands were fists, nails biting skin. I won't retract the report. No one asked you to, he said with that slick, polished contempt only people who have never been proven wrong can pull off. But I suggest you take this opportunity to reflect on whether you still align with the company's goals. He meant shut up or stay gone. On the way out, I passed Marcy, the closest thing I had to a friend in that office. We'd been through 5 budget crises and 1 hurricane evacuation together. She wouldn't meet my eyes. But just as I reached the elevator, she whispered, barely audible, Diane, let it go. Just for your own good, for my own good. Funny how those words always mean for their comfort. I sat in my car for an hour that day, just sat, no music, no air, just the Florida heat pressing in, the taste of copper behind my teeth. I wasn't going to fake compliance. I wasn't going to smile and nod and go gentle into Mason's brochure-friendly nightmare. He wanted silence. But the ground wasn't done speaking. The envelope was thick, too thick. HR handed it to me with the kind of fake sympathy usually reserved for televised funerals and reality TV eliminations. Inside, my severance package, a pre-written departure announcement, and a 6-page NDA so aggressive it may as well have ended with, and don't even think about tweeting. I flipped through it, heart pounding. The language was surgical, no public comments, no professional critiques, and absolutely no discussion of project-specific geological concerns. Basically, they gagged me with a paycheck and a smile. Mason didn't even show up for the meeting. But as I was boxing up my office, my books, my soil core samples, my battered National Geographic mugs, he did slink in with a cup of something herbal and smug. "Hope you enjoy retirement," he said, as if I were some old dog being sent to a farm upstate. I didn't reply. Words felt useless, and besides, the rage had congealed into something heavier by then. Something that sat in my chest like wet cement. I spent the next 3 weeks in a fog. I'd always imagined if I ever quit, I'd travel. Maybe finally see Alaska. But no, I just sat in my bathrobe, watching reruns of Antiques Roadshow, half-eating saltines and Googling geological consulting jobs that wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot auger after news of my departure circulated. One firm ghosted me after 2 rounds of interviews. Another called just to ask about the incident. I hung up mid-sentence. I was radioactive. The spiral had layers. First came the crying, then the numbness, then the vengeful ideas you don't tell your therapist. I drank boxed wine out of an old thermos and avoided mirrors like they owed me money. One humid Tuesday, somewhere between self-pity and a headache that felt biblical, I opened the door to my garage and started digging through old bins. I think I was looking for an old field journal, but what I found instead stopped me cold. A topo map, yellowed with time, folded along frayed creases. I unrolled it across my kitchen table, still sticky with pancake syrup from a breakfast I didn't remember making. It was dated 1984. Labeled State of Florida Geological Survey, Subsurface Risk Atlas, Marion County Quadrant C. My eyes scanned the grid, heart thudding harder with every inch. The lot, the exact coordinates, marked with a red pencil cross and labeled Recorded Subsidence Event Probable Karst Collapse. I traced the perimeter with trembling fingers. Not only had this area seen a sinkhole before, it had been flagged twice. Once in '84 and again in '92. I had no idea how the company missed it, or maybe they hadn't. Maybe they buried it like they buried my report. I sat back, the room spinning just slightly. The map didn't lie. The earth didn't lie. I'd been right. From the beginning. It didn't fix my career. It didn't take away the humiliation. But it sharpened something inside me, burned off the fog and replaced it with cold, righteous clarity. Mason thought he'd buried me, but I know what happens to things buried on unstable ground. Eventually, they resurface. I didn't wake up one morning healed, motivated, or glowing with purpose. That's not how real ruin works. It seeps. But I did wake up one Tuesday with the distinct thought, if I stay in this robe another day, I'm going to disappear. So I peeled myself off the couch and walked, just out the front door, no plan. I didn't care that I looked like a cranky librarian with bedhead and a vengeance complex. I walked until my legs stopped trembling, until the air didn't feel like molasses in my lungs. That night, I opened a notebook that had been blank for years and started writing. Not a memoir, not some closure journey, just a list, things the land remembers. And I kept going. Therapy followed, reluctantly. Little office off Route 40, with chairs that smelled like old gum, and a woman named Janine who wore too many turquoise rings, but didn't flinch when I said the words I wanted it to fail. She nodded like she'd heard worse. I liked her for that. I hiked. I listened to the earth again. Not the way I used to, measuring and mapping, but the way I had when I was a kid, tracing ant lines across cracked dirt, and learning to tell time by where the sun hit the oak trees. In the middle of all that rebuilding, she called. Mallory Devlin, journalist, former college roommate, once smoked oregano in our dorm room and thought it counted as weed. Now, a respected investigative reporter for the St. Petersburg Sentinel, specializing in environmental mismanagement and corporate corruption. She didn't say much at first, just that she'd heard some chatter about a development project skimping on geological surveys to shave costs. I played dumb because the NDA still hovered like a legal buzzard. But she was good, real good. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who worked on something out by Juniper Ridge, would you? Rumors say a key report vanished before zoning approval. I stared at my ceiling fan for a long time after that call. I could feel the edge of the line I wasn't allowed to cross. Then I remembered that topo map. It wasn't company property. It wasn't confidential. It was public record, printed by the state in 1984, bought with a cashier's check at a Gainesville archive back when I still had student loans. So I scanned it. Along with the GPR images I'd pulled from the state's own geological database. I created a new Proton Mail account under a name even I wouldn't recognize if you yelled it across a parking lot. I sent it to Mallory with a subject line, FYI, you may find these records. Illuminating. No signature, no trail, just the truth. I didn't hear from her right away. That was fine. I wasn't trying to set the world on fire. I was just planting matches where they might get warm. Instead, I poured my focus into watching. The developers broke ground 2 weeks later. Social media lit up with drone shots of Mason in a hard hat he probably thought made him look rugged. Florida's premier eco-luxury community, Vomit. I watched the hype grow like a tumor. Released mock-ups with yoga decks and solar panels, and something called a mindful walking trail. Funny, no mention of reinforced foundations or stormwater mitigation. Still, I didn't flinch, didn't scream, didn't warn, I just watched. Like the earth does, quiet, still, waiting for the pressure to build. The first backhoe hit the dirt on a Monday morning, right as Florida's humidity turned the sky into a wet sponge stretched over hell. Mason stood at the edge of it, all smiles and marketing angles, flanked by a pair of city officials who'd clearly been promised poolside invitations and free golf memberships once the model homes sold. A drone buzzed overhead, filming the grand-breaking ground ceremony like it was the moon landing. The footage hit social media by lunchtime. A slow pan across the freshly cleared land, Mason grinning under his hard hat like a used car salesman on opening day. He kept using phrases like visionary sustainability and earth-conscious living, which sounded poetic until you remembered he paved over a marsh to make room for luxury hot tubs. The comments under the video were all sunshine and emojis. Can't wait to move in. So excited for this beautiful community. That clubhouse render looks lit. I created a burner account under the name GeoFiMom57 and started dropping little seeds in community threads and real estate forums. Just curious, anyone know if soil compaction tests were released? I heard that area had historic groundwater instability. Love the vision. Hope they're reinforcing below code. Those sinkhole zones can be sneaky in that county. I never accused, never pointed, just nudged. The way a fault line shifts under pressure, slow and quiet until it cracks. And someone did crack. His message came through LinkedIn of all places. Ben Rafferty, a former intern of mine back in 2014. Back then, he wore oversized glasses and had a habit of eating his lunch with a ruler stuck in the PB and J like a bookmark. But he had the spark. He listened to soil like it had secrets, not just specs. Now he was a full-blown civil engineer for a contracting firm, one of the approved ones on the Juniper Ridge build. His message was brief, cautious. Diane, I heard something. Are the rumors true? Was the site flagged before? I stared at the screen for a long time. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, not sure if it was wind or instinct trying to push you over. I replied simply, I hope they reinforce the subfloor. He didn't write back right away, and that was fine, because I knew what that message would do. Ben was smart. More importantly, he had a conscience. That tiny sliver of doubt would start crawling through his brain like a centipede, touching everything. Every bolt, every blueprint, every late-night compromise some project manager tried to slide past him. Meanwhile, the development kept rolling. Trucks came in. Frames went up. The promotional campaign cranked to 11. They had branded hashtags now, #rooted in luxury, #live the ridge, #earth smart living. There was even a TikTok video of Mason high-fiving a bulldog in front of a half-built pergola. But I also noticed things they didn't post, like the water pooling behind the grading site after a mild rain, or the vague job listing I found for a foundation compliance consultant posted at 2 a.m. and deleted by sunrise. They were rushing, cutting, smiling through panic. I watched it all like a hawk circling a carcass. And beneath that quiet, I felt it, pressure building, not just in the ground, but in the people, the ones who knew, the ones who had questions they couldn't unask. Something was coming, and I didn't have to do a damn thing except wait. The first real rain came on a Thursday, right on schedule, Florida's version of a seasonal cleansing, or maybe just Mother Nature getting ready to pop a zit. Not a hurricane, not a deluge, just a slow, steady curtain of water that turned gutters into creeks and driveways into slip and slides. Nothing special. unless you'd buried $1 million fantasy on rotting limestone. I was halfway through a leftover burrito when the first image popped up on Reddit. A blurry shot, clearly taken from a car window, showing water pooling at the edge of Juniper Ridge's freshly paved entryway. The caption read, "Anyone else think this drainage looks off?" The comments were split between HOA hopefuls and geology nerds. "It's Florida. Of course it floods. That's not normal pooling, it's collecting in a depression. Might be a sink zone." Within an hour, the post was gone, removed, the user deleted, but I'd already saved it, and I wasn't the only one watching. That night, I saw another post, this one on a Facebook group for local moms. A woman had taken her toddler to see the new model home and snapped a pic of the road leading up to it. You had to squint, but there it was, a hairline crack snaking across the curb like a vein just under skin. The comments were, concerned. "My husband works construction, said this looks bad. Anyone else smell mold near the welcome center?" Then that post vanished too. I leaned back in my chair, heart thudding slow but hard. It had begun. The surface tension was breaking. The PR machine was sweating bullets under its spray tan. Sure enough, by morning, Mason was on the local news. His collar was damp, hair flatter than usual. The footage showed him walking briskly past reporters, then stopping to offer a tight, forced smile in front of a row of model home banners flapping in the breeze like surrender flags. "We want to assure the community that all permits are in order," he said, voice just one octave above panic. "This project meets and exceeds every environmental and structural guideline. The rain is expected. We're in Florida." God, the way he said expected like it was an excuse, like gravity itself was an inconvenience. He refused to take questions. The camera caught him glancing off-screen, likely toward the investor rep who had once laughed when I warned about aquifer volatility. He wasn't laughing now. The buyers weren't pulling out yet. Not officially. Whispers had started. Cancellations. Walkthroughs were scheduled with vague apologies, and somewhere in all that squirming silence, I felt something unfamiliar. Not triumph, not quite. It was dread, tinged with inevitability. I didn't want anyone hurt. That was never the plan. But I'd tried. God, I tried. I screamed into reports and meetings and emails and was met with laughter and NDAs. So now I sat in my kitchen, coffee going cold, eyes locked on a live-stream drone shot of the model cul-de-sac as another wave of gray rain crept across the sky. I could see the pooling clearer now, pocketing in places it shouldn't, sagging the earth around it like wet skin about to split. And I whispered out loud, to no one, "Any minute now." The thunder rolled in like a freight train dragging chains behind it. Around 2 a.m., the sky cracked wide open and dumped enough rain to make the windows shudder. I lay awake, not blinking, not afraid, just waiting. The house groaned against the wind. The gutters overflowed. I counted the seconds between flashes of lightning and the roar that followed, the way we all learned to do growing up in this swampy state. 5 seconds, 3, then 1, then none. It felt like the whole sky collapsed. By morning, I didn't need an alarm. My phone lit up like it had grown tumors. Notifications stacked on top of each other, texts, missed calls, emails, news alerts. I ignored them all. I went straight to the local affiliate site, and there it was, grainy cell phone footage from a nearby home, shaking as someone whispered, "Oh my God, oh my God." The camera pointed through a rain-streaked window. Past the street, past the sign for Juniper Ridge, to what used to be their prized model home. Gone, or mostly gone. The right half had vanished into the earth, just a jagged mouth where foundation used to be. Slab of roof dangled like a loose tooth. Furniture poked out of the mud at wrong angles. An ottoman, a mattress, part of a granite kitchen island cracked like a bitten cookie. It didn't look like a construction flaw. It looked biblical. The local media showed up within the hour. Drones, helicopters, whether analysts pointing to water tables and Dahleans like they'd just discovered geology existed. Neighbors were interviewed on sidewalks, rain still dripping from their hoods. Said it was safe, one woman muttered. They said it was earth-rooted living. Someone else just stared off camera, dazed. It sounded hollow when I walked across the porch. I thought it was just bad insulation. The city cordoned off the street by noon. Yellow tape and panic do wonders for crowd control. The sale signs came down with all the ceremony of a funeral. I spotted one being yanked out of the lawn by a city worker who looked like he was digging a grave. Buyers began pulling out within hours. 3 resale listings popped up by sundown, homes that hadn't even been finished yet. Realtors swapped their profile pics to headshots without Juniper Ridge in the background. The next press conference was scheduled hastily. It was held in a smaller room, no branded banners, no catered mimosas, just a handful of shell-shocked spokespeople sweating under bad fluorescent lighting. Mason was notably absent. Investors looked like they'd aged 10 years overnight. One of them actually rubbed his temples on camera like he was trying to push the migraine back in with his thumbs. No one mentioned my name. They didn't have to. I watched it all from my couch, barefoot, wrapped in a worn fleece blanket that still smelled faintly of cedar and old raincoats. I poured a glass of wine. Cheap, red, and warm, perfect. The news droned on, interviews and B-roll looping like some ironic victory lap. I muted it, sat in the silence, sipped once, and smiled. It wasn't joy, not exactly. Just a cold, precise satisfaction that slid down smoother than the wine ever could. They built their future on a lie, and the earth swallowed it whole. 3 weeks passed, long enough for the rain to stop, for the social media hysteria to cool into curated damage control, for the marketing team to try scrubbing Juniper Ridge from every corner of the internet like it was a cursed phrase. But no amount of PR bleach could clean up what Mother Nature had already broadcast. The land had spoken, and it hadn't stuttered. During that time, I hiked. I slept. I started teaching a geology class at the community college down the road, just one night a week, nothing fancy. The students were half interested and always late. They asked questions, real questions, and none of them laughed when I told them karst terrain was a silent predator. Then one afternoon, as I was reviewing old lecture slides and drinking coffee that had gone cold, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Area code, Tallahassee. I stared at it for a second, then answered. Dr. Lorman? The voice was hushed, trying for casual but strung tight underneath. Yes, I said flat. This is Russell P. Ambrose, managing partner on the Juniper Ridge project. We were hoping to consult with you regarding geological risk assessments for a few adjacent properties. Different zoning, of course. We're in early stages, and given your, familiarity with the area, he trailed off. I could hear a voice in the background whispering something, probably about legal exposure or optics, or how many lawyers they'd already burned through trying to put out this fire. Let the silence hang just long enough to make him sweat. Then I said, calm and surgical, you already had a reliable expert. Pause, you fired her. He fumbled for a reply, some corporate cocktail of regret and repositioning, of course, and we regret the circumstances, but this is a fresh opportunity to. I ended the call mid-sentence. Then I scrolled to the contact log, hovered over the number for a beat, and deleted it. No grand speeches, no follow-up email. Just gone. I leaned back in my chair, let the stillness stretch out. Outside, a few squirrels chased each other across the fence line, utterly indifferent to the small shift in the universe that had just occurred. I was never going to be vindicated in headlines. Mason would land on his feet, men like him always do. The development would rebrand, reshuffle, resell. But now they knew. Now he knew. And next time someone like me raises a red flag, maybe, just maybe, they'll listen before the earth opens its mouth. I sipped the last of my coffee, still bitter, still cold. Perfect. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.